Okay, so we need to solve each system by graphing and then check the solution. And you'll notice that these equations are in standard form. I'm going to do a shortcut that you should have your mind around at this point from the last unit, which is you use standard form. Well, if you have standard form and you're trying to graph, you can find the intercepts. So if you say 2x minus y equals -5, that first one, if you plugged in 0 for x, because anything on the y-axis has a x coordinate of 0. If you put in 0 for x, then 2 times 0 is 0. This part goes away, and you end up with just the part with y. Negative y equals -5. And then, of course, dividing by -1, you get y equals 5. Okay? So this first one would have a y-intercept of 5, and put that dot right there. And I'll erase all of these. I'll erase them when I'm done. But you can then say, okay, if you were then trying to find the x-intercept, you put 0 in for y, because everything on the x-axis has a y-coordinate of 0. If you don't understand that, then you have a incomplete understanding of what it means to be coordinates. Coordinates are how far you move first left and right, and then how far you move up or down. So if you're a point on this axis, you're not moving up or down at all from the origin, right? You move left or right to get to the point, but then you don't move up or down. So you have a 0 y coordinate. So you put in 0 for y, and of course, if you put in 0 for y, that goes away, and you get simply 2x equals -5. And then what you have to do is divide by 2, and you get x equals -5 halves. Okay, we'll do this one also in red. What does that mean? You go over to the x-axis this is equal to, you should know that that's equal to -2.5. Again, I know people have trouble with fractions, but get used to them. They're a feature of your life now. So the x-intercept is -2.5. So you go over to -1, you go over to -2, and then you go over to -2.5. And that's where your intercept is going to be. Okay? And that means then that you're going to have a line running through those two. So I'm going to graph that in red, and I'll get rid of everything else, and then we'll do the other equation. Okay, so now we'll do this next one in blue, and we've got -2x minus y equals -1. If we want to find the y-intercept, we put 0 in for x. Putting 0 in for x makes the x term go away, and you should know that the coefficient, including its sign, and the variable itself, x, all go away. So that negative goes away, the 2 goes away, the x goes away, leaving you with -y equals -1. And if you divide both by -1, you get y equals 1. Sorry, it's a little sloppy. Oops. Y equals 1. So you have for this one, you have a y-intercept of 1. So let me write it right there. Okay, and we're going to then do the same thing for to find the x-intercept. So -2x minus y equals -1. If we put in 0 for y, I'm shorthanding it. You should know how to do this by now. If you put in 0 for y, then that negative y goes away because it's essentially -0. It's just 0. So then you have -2x equals -1, and when you divide by -2, you get x equals, negative divided by negative is positive, you get an x coordinate of 1/2. So that is right there. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the calculations, I'm going to draw the line, and then we will check. All right, so if we look where they cross, we find that they're crossing at -1, 3. -1, 3. I'm going to move on the assumption for the rest of, I think, kind of the rest of the year, that you know how to plot points. You know that that is -1, 3, and you're not confused by it. If you are, you need to come and do some work with me, or otherwise figure it out. I need to stop explaining what it means to be the coordinate -1, 3. But if you need help with that, I'm happy to help you individually. Just not going to do it on these videos anymore. So what do we do now? We're going to take that x and y coordinate and we're going to plug it into each equation to see if it works. And I'm going to write out the work without recording it. I'll record it without you watching, and you'll just see the. Okay. So I've written each equation. The first equation is listed first, and I replaced x with -1 and y with 3, and solved it out, and we get a true statement. Same thing on the next equation. I've replaced x with -1 and y with 3, and I've gotten a true statement. And so what that means is we have as a solution -1, 3, and you're done.